The poor stay poor not because they lack money, but because they have a poverty mindset that repels wealth. Rich people don't just have more money, they have completely different mental programming about money, success, and their own worth. While poor people say, I can't afford it, rich people ask, how can I afford it? While poor people see successful individuals as lucky or corrupt. Rich people study them as mentors and models, while poor people make excuses for their circumstances. Rich people take responsibility for their results. The most dangerous lie ever told is that money doesn't matter or that wanting wealth makes you greedy. Money is simply a tool. And like any tool, it amplifies who you already are. The real tragedy is that millions of good people will never fulfill their purpose because they've been programmed to reject the very resources they need to make their maximum impact. There was a woman named Rosa who cleaned office buildings every night for 15 years. She would arrive at 10 p.m. with her mop bucket and cleaning supplies, working until 6 a.m. while everyone else slept. But here's what nobody knew about Rosa. She had a master's degree in engineering. She had graduated with honors, spoke 3 languages fluently, and could solve complex mathematical equations in her head. Yet every night, she pushed that mop across marble floors, convinced that this was all she was good for, you see. Rosa had applied for engineering positions hundreds of times. Every rejection letter reinforced the voice in her head that whispered, you're not smart enough. You don't belong in those corporate offices. You're just a cleaner. That voice had become so loud, so convincing, that Rosa stopped seeing herself as an engineer altogether. She had unknowingly flipped an invisible switch in her mind from I am capable to I am limited. The turning point came on a Tuesday night when Rosa was cleaning the offices of a major construction company. She noticed blueprints scattered across a conference table, and something caught her eye. There was a serious flaw in the structural design, a miscalculation that could cause the building to collapse. Rosa stood there for 20 minutes, staring at those papers, her engineering mind racing. She knew exactly what was wrong and how to fix it. But then that familiar voice whispered, it's not your place. You're just the cleaning lady. Who are you to question the experts? Rosa almost walked away. Almost. But something deeper inside her refused to let innocent people get hurt because of her own self-doubt. She found a pen and quietly wrote the correct calculations on a sticky note, placing it on the blueprints the next morning. The lead engineer found Rosa's note. He ran the calculations 3 times, consulted with his team, and realized that this anonymous correction had just saved the company millions of dollars and potentially hundreds of lives. He was so impressed that he had security footage reviewed to find out who had written those calculations. When they called Rosa into the office, she was terrified. She thought she was about to be fired for touching things that weren't hers to touch. Instead, the engineering team offered her a position on the spot. Not as a junior engineer, but as a senior structural engineer, with a salary that was 8 times what she made cleaning offices. Rosa broke down in tears, not from joy, but from the devastating realization of how much time she had wasted. 15 years of her life had been stolen by an invisible switch in her mind. The same brilliant mind that solved that complex structural problem had been there all along. But she had convinced herself it wasn't valuable enough. This is the power of mindset. It's like an invisible switch that determines whether you access your potential or remain trapped in a prison of your own making. Rosa's story reveals something profound about human nature. We don't fail because we lack ability. We fail because we have the wrong mindset about our ability. Your mindset is not just your attitude or your mood. It's the invisible operating system that runs your entire life. It's the filter through which you interpret every experience, every opportunity, every setback. It determines what you see as possible and what you dismiss as impossible. It controls whether you approach challenges with confidence or retreat in fear. Most people live their entire lives without ever realizing they have an invisible switch. They accept their current circumstances as their permanent reality. They look at successful people and think, they're just lucky, or they have something I don't have. But success isn't about having more intelligence, more resources, or more opportunities. Success is about having your invisible switch flipped to the right position. Think about Rosa for a moment. Her engineering knowledge didn't increase between Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. Her intelligence didn't multiply overnight. Her experience didn't expand in those few hours. The only thing that changed was her mindset. She flipped the invisible switch from I'm not qualified to I am exactly who they need. This invisible switch exists in every area of your life. It controls your relationships, your career, your health, your finances, and your sense of purpose. When the switch is in the wrong position, you'll sabotage your own success. You'll find reasons why things won't work instead of finding ways to make them work. You'll focus on your limitations instead of your possibilities. But when you flip that switch, everything changes. The same situations that once seemed impossible become opportunities. The same challenges that once defeated you become stepping stones. The same dreams that once seemed unrealistic become inevitable outcomes. The tragedy is that most people never flip their switch. They live and die with their potential locked inside them. They take their dreams to the grave, convinced that they weren't meant for greatness. They spend their lives being spectators of other people's success, never realizing that they have the same power within them right now. As you hear these words, you have an invisible switch in your mind. It's either set to limitation or possibility. It's either set to fear or faith. It's either set to fear or fator. And here's the most important truth you need to understand. You have the power to flip that switch at any moment. Rosa's story is not unique. It's happening all around us every day. There are janitors who are brilliant inventors, waitresses who are gifted leaders, security guards who are innovative entrepreneurs. They all have the same invisible switch you have. The difference is whether they choose to flip it or not. Your current circumstances are not your final destination. Your past failures are not your future reality. Your present limitations are not your permanent condition. You have an invisible switch that can change everything in an instant. The question is not whether you have the power to flip it. Now let me tell you about Marcus, a man who understood this invisible switch better than most people ever will. Marcus worked in a small auto repair shop in Detroit, fixing engines and changing oil for 12 years. He was good at his job, but he was never satisfied with just being good. While other mechanics would go home after work, Marcus would stay behind, not to work on more cars, but to work on something completely different. You see, Marcus had noticed something that bothered him every single day. The tools they used in the shop were inefficient. The wrench sets would slip. The diagnostic equipment would give false readings. And the hydraulic lifts would break down constantly. But instead of complaining like everyone else, Marcus did something different. He started studying these problems. He would take apart the broken tools and figure out why they failed. He would sketch new designs on napkins during his lunch breaks. His co-workers thought he was wasting his time. Marcus, you're just a mechanic, they would say. Leave the inventing to the engineers. But Marcus had something they didn't have. His invisible switch was flipped to the right position. While they saw problems, he saw opportunities. While they saw limitations, he saw possibilities. For 3 years, Marcus spent every evening in his garage, building prototypes of better tools. He failed hundreds of times. His wife would find him at 2 a.m., covered in grease, surrounded by metal scraps and broken parts. Many nights, she would ask him why he was torturing himself. "You have a steady job," she would say. "Why risk everything for some crazy idea?" But Marcus understood something about the human mind that most people never learn. Your brain is like a powerful computer, but it only processes the information you program into it. If you program it with thoughts of limitation, it will find evidence to support those limitations. If you program it with thoughts of possibility, it will find ways to make those possibilities real. Marcus programmed his mind differently than his co-workers. Every morning he would look in the mirror and say, "I am an inventor. I create solutions that change the world." He didn't just think these thoughts occasionally. He made them the dominant software running in his mental computer. And slowly, his brain began to rewire itself to match these new instructions. Scientists call this neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new neural connections throughout life. But Marcus didn't know the scientific term. He just knew that when he changed his thinking, his reality began to change too. He started noticing things he had never seen before. He would walk through hardware stores and see possibilities instead of just products. He would read about other inventors and see mentors instead of competitors. Then one day, everything changed. Marcus had created a new type of wrench that could adjust to any bolt size automatically. It was simple, but it was revolutionary. When he demonstrated it to his boss, the man was amazed. "Marcus, this could change everything," he said. "You need to patent this immediately." Within 6 months, Marcus had sold his patent to a major tool company for $1.2 million, but that was just the beginning. The company hired him as the head of innovation. Today, Marcus owns 17 patents, and his inventions are used in garages and factories around the world. His annual income is more than most people make in a lifetime. What transformed Marcus from a mechanic to a millionaire inventor? Did he suddenly become smarter? Did he gain superpowers? Did he win the lottery? No. The only thing that changed was his mindset. He flipped his invisible switch from "I'm just a mechanic" to "I'm an inventor who happens to work as a mechanic." And this is how your mind really works. It has a system called the reticular activating system. Think of it as your brain's search engine. This system filters the millions of pieces of information that bombard you every day. And it only shows you the information that matches what you believe is important. When Marcus believed he was just a mechanic, his brain filtered out opportunities and possibilities. When he changed his belief to "I'm an inventor," his brain started showing him solutions and innovations everywhere. Right now, your reticular activating system is working. It's filtering your reality based on the position of your invisible switch. If your switch is set to limitation, you're literally blind to the opportunities around you. If your switch is set to possibility, you'll start seeing solutions you never noticed before. This brings me to a woman named Elena, who lived in a small apartment with her 2 children after her husband abandoned them. She was surviving on government assistance, working part-time at a grocery store, barely making ends meet. Every month was a struggle to pay rent, buy groceries, and keep the lights on. But Elena's real prison wasn't her financial situation. It was the invisible chains wrapped around her mind. Elena had grown up hearing the same phrases over and over. Poor people like us don't get ahead. Rich people are greedy and corrupt. You should be grateful for what you have. Don't reach too high or you'll fall hard. These weren't just words to Elena. They had become the programming code running her life. Her invisible switch had been set to limitation before she even knew she had one. Every time an opportunity presented itself, Elena would find reasons why it wouldn't work for someone like her. When a customer at the grocery store mentioned a business opportunity, Elena's mind immediately responded, "That's for other people, not me." When she saw successful women on television, she would think, "They are lucky. They had advantages I don't have." When her children talked about their dreams, she would say, "Be realistic. Don't set yourself up for disappointment." Elena was fighting a war against herself. She didn't even know it. She was arguing for her own limitations with a passion that most people reserve for defending their greatest treasures. She had become her own worst enemy, her own harshest critic, her own biggest obstacle. Then something happened that changed everything. Elena's daughter came home from school crying. When Elena asked what was wrong, her daughter said, "Mom, why did you tell Mrs. Johnson that we're poor and can't afford things? Now all the kids at school think we're losers." Elena felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. She realized that her limited thinking wasn't just affecting her, it was infecting her children at night. Elena made a decision that would transform 3 lives forever. She decided to flip her invisible switch. But first, she had to recognize the difference between victim mindset and victor mindset. A victim asks, "Why is this happening to me?" A victor asks, "How can I use this to become stronger?" A victor focuses on problems. A victor focuses on solutions. 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 A victor changes circumstances. Elena started small. Instead of saying, "We can't afford that," she began saying, "How can we afford that?" Instead of thinking, "I'm stuck in this situation," she started asking, "What skills do I need to learn to change this situation?" Instead of believing successful people are different from me, she began studying successful people to learn what they did differently. The transformation wasn't instant, but it was real. Elena enrolled in night classes to learn bookkeeping while working during the day. She started a small cleaning business with 2 clients. When people said, "Elena, you're crazy to take on so much," she would smile and say, "I'm not crazy, I'm determined." Within 2 years, Elena had built her cleaning business to serve 47 clients. She hired 8 employees and moved her family to a beautiful home in a safe neighborhood. But the most remarkable change wasn't in her bank account. It was in her children. They started talking about their dreams with confidence. They began to see possibilities instead of limitations. Elena had broken the cycle of limited thinking that had been passed down through generations. Today, Elena owns 3 successful businesses and mentors other single mothers. But she never forgets the most important lesson she learned. Your circumstances don't determine your mindset. Your mindset determines your circumstances. Elena's story shows us that change is possible, but it raises the critical question, how do you actually flip the invisible switch? How do you reprogram a mind that has been running the same limiting software for years? Sometimes decades. Let me tell you about Jonathan, a young man who failed his first year of medical school so badly that his professors told him he wasn't cut out to be a doctor. Jonathan had dreamed of becoming a surgeon since he was 8 years old, but his academic performance suggested those dreams were unrealistic. His test scores were among the lowest in his class. He couldn't memorize complex medical terminology. He struggled with basic anatomy. Every exam felt like a confirmation that he didn't belong in medicine. But Jonathan understood something that most people never learn. Failure is not a permanent condition. It's temporary feedback. Instead of accepting defeat, he decided to study his own mind, the way he studied medical textbooks. He realized that his internal dialogue was sabotaging his success. Every time he sat down to study, his mind would whisper, "You're not smart enough for this. You're going to fail anyway. Why even try?" Jonathan made a radical decision. He decided to fire the negative voice in his head and hire a new one. But he didn't just hope for positive thoughts. He engineered them. Every morning, he would stand in front of his mirror and have a different conversation with himself. Instead of, "I'm not smart enough," he would say, "I have a brilliant mind that learns and retains information easily." Instead of, "I'm going to fail," he would declare, "I am becoming an excellent surgeon who saves lives." At first, these statements felt like lies. His rational mind would protest, "But you just failed your exams. How can you say you're brilliant?" Jonathan understood that this resistance was normal. He was literally rewiring his brain, and the old programming was fighting back. But he persisted. He spoke these new truths every day, whether he felt them or not. Then Jonathan did something even more powerful. He began to mentally rehearse success. Every night before sleep, he would close his eyes and visualize himself performing surgery with perfect precision. He would see himself saving lives, earning the respect of his colleagues, and achieving his childhood dream. He made these mental movies so vivid, so detailed, that his brain began to accept them as real experiences. Neuroscientists have discovered that your brain cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. When Jonathan visualized performing surgery, his brain was actually creating the neural pathways he would need to perform those surgeries in real life. He was literally practicing in his mind before he ever held a scalpel. The transformation was remarkable. Jonathan's grades improved dramatically in his second year. His confidence soared. His ability to learn and retain information multiplied. By his third year, he was among the top students in his class. Today, Dr. Jonathan Williams is one of the most respected cardiac surgeons in the country, and he has saved thousands of lives. What changed? Jonathan didn't become more intelligent overnight. He didn't suddenly develop superhuman abilities. He simply learned to reprogram his mental operating system. He identified the toxic thought patterns that were limiting his performance and replaced them with empowering beliefs. He used mental rehearsal to train his brain for success before he experienced it in reality. This is the specific process of flipping your invisible switch. First, you must become aware of your current mental programming. Listen to your internal dialogue. Notice what you tell yourself about your abilities, your potential, your worth. Second, you must consciously choose new programming that aligns with your desired outcomes. Third, you must repeat this new programming consistently until it becomes your dominant mental software. The process Jonathan used is powerful, but it raises another crucial question. How do you maintain this new mindset when life tries to drag you back to your old patterns? How do you protect your transformed thinking when everyone around you is operating from limitation? How do you sustain your success when setbacks and failures inevitably come? Let me share with you the story of Carmen, a woman who not only flipped her invisible switch, but learned to keep it in the right position even when everything around her was falling apart. Carmen grew up in extreme poverty in a neighborhood where violence was common and opportunities were rare. Her mother cleaned houses for wealthy families, and Carmen would sometimes go with her to help carry supplies. While other children her age were playing, Carmen was observing. She watched how successful people lived, how they talked, how they carried themselves. She noticed that they had something different in their eyes, a confidence, a certainty that she had never seen in her own community. Carmen made a decision at age 12 that would change her life forever. She decided that she would learn to think like those successful people thought. Carmen started reading every book about success she could find in the public library. She studied the biographies of wealthy entrepreneurs and successful leaders. She began to reprogram her mind with stories of triumph instead of tales of limitation. By age 16, Carmen had developed what she called her success mindset, and she started a small business selling homemade jewelry to her classmates. But life had other plans. Just as Carmen was building momentum, her mother became seriously ill and couldn't work. Carmen had to quit school to take care of her mother and support the family. The medical bills piled up. The business had to be abandoned. People in her neighborhood began to whisper, "See, she thought she was better than us, but she's right back where she started." This is where most people's stories end. This is where the invisible switch gets flipped back to limitation. The voice of old programming returns with a vengeance. "See, I told you that success wasn't meant for people like us. You should have never tried to rise above your circumstances." But Carmen understood something that most people never learn. Setbacks are not setups for failure. They are setups for comebacks. She had trained her mind to see obstacles as opportunities, problems as puzzles to solve, and temporary defeats as permanent education. Instead of allowing circumstances to reprogram her mind back to limitation, she used those same circumstances to strengthen her resolve while caring for her mother during the day. Carmen would study business courses online at night while other people her age were going to parties. Carmen was learning about marketing, finance, and customer service. She turned her mother's illness into an opportunity to research the healthcare industry. She noticed how difficult it was for elderly people to navigate the complex medical system, and she saw a business opportunity. Carmen started a service helping elderly people manage their medical appointments, insurance claims, and medication schedules. She began with 3 clients, neighbors who had watched her expertly manage her mother's care. Within 6 months, she had 20 clients. Within a year, she had hired 4 employees. Within 3 years, Carmen's elder care service was operating in 5 cities with over 200 clients. But the real test came when Carmen's business faced its biggest crisis. A competitor with more resources moved into her market and began offering similar services at lower prices. Several of Carmen's key employees left to join the competition. Her revenue dropped by 60% in just 4 months. Carmen found herself working 18-hour days just to keep the business alive. This is the moment that separates those who truly understand the invisible switch from those who just talk about it. Carmen could have given up. She could have blamed the competition, the economy, or her circumstances. She could have flipped her switch back to victim mode and joined the millions of people who say, "I tried to succeed, but it didn't work out." Instead, Carmen did something remarkable. She protected her success mindset like a mother protects her child. Every morning, she would spend 30 minutes reinforcing her mental programming. She would read success stories, listen to motivational content, and visualize her business thriving again. She refused to allow negative thoughts to take root in her mind. Carmen also surrounded herself with people who reinforced her success mindset instead of undermining it. She joined a business owners group where successful entrepreneurs shared their challenges and victories. She found a mentor who had overcome similar obstacles in his own business. She stopped spending time with people who complained, made excuses, or tried to convince her to give up. Most importantly, Carmen developed what she called mental discipline. Just as athletes train their bodies daily, Carmen trained her mind daily. She monitored her thoughts like a security guard monitors a building. When negative thoughts tried to enter, she would immediately replace them with empowering alternatives. When people around her spoke limitation, she would silently affirm possibility. The turnaround took 8 months, but it was dramatic. Carmen not only recovered her lost revenue, but doubled it. She expanded her business into new services and new markets. Today, Carmen's company operates in 12 states with over 500 employees. But more importantly, she has maintained her success mindset through multiple challenges, economic downturns, and personal setbacks. Carmen learned that flipping your invisible switch is not a one-time event, it's a daily discipline. Your mind is constantly being programmed by your environment, your relationships, your media consumption, and your own internal dialogue. If you don't actively choose what programs your mind will be programmed by default, and default programming is usually limitation programming. The invisible switch that controls your life is not controlled by your circumstances, your background, your education, or your resources. It's controlled by your daily choices. Every morning, you choose what thoughts to think. Every day, you choose what words to speak about yourself and your possibilities. Every evening, you choose what images to visualize about your future. You are not a victim of your past programming. You are not stuck with the mindset you inherited from your family, your culture, or your circumstances. You have the power to reprogram your mind, flip your invisible switch, and create the life you were designed to live. But remember this, with great power comes great responsibility. Once you understand how to flip your invisible switch, you have a responsibility to help others flip theirs. You become a living example that transformation is possible. You become proof that people don't have to remain trapped by their circumstances. Your invisible switch is waiting. The question is not whether you can flip it. The question is whether you will flip it. The question is not whether you deserve success. The question is whether you will choose success. The question is not whether you have potential. Today is the day. This moment is the moment. Your invisible switch is in your hands. What will you choose?